Hello, I am speaking to you about the assignment you have to read Puritan authors, including Anne Bradstreet and the Journal of the Governor that I put on your syllabus, and contrasting this with Benjamin Franklin. I wanted to make it clear to you why it is that you have the particular contrast between the thinking of the Puritans and the thinking of a guy like Benjamin Franklin, who, by most accounts, really doesn't believe in God. Um, it's important for us to know that the original 13 colonies of this country didn't all share the same philosophy of what America was supposed to be. That's already a theme of this class, the debate about how we understand what America is supposed to be, what it's supposed to do. And this existed from the beginning. It's particularly notable in the thinking of uh, the cities of Boston and of Philadelphia. Of course, the Massachusetts Bay Colony was based in Massachusetts, and Boston, as you likely know, was a central city for Massachusetts from very early on. And you may have heard of something called the Boston, I'm writing on a board and I'm going to show it to you, Commons. And it's related to a word that makes sense in Boston, the Boston Commons. Can you actually see the way that I would hope you would see this word? Or are you somehow seeing it backwards? I cannot tell. Boston Commons. Look, Boston Commons. It's kind of like a city park. But it used to be a common ground where everyone in the city was free to graze farm animals because let's say you weren't rich enough to own any land. Well, the city was going to make sure your family didn't starve by allowing your animals to feed there. Also, there was the idea in Boston that while you had to obey an awful lot of rules, I mean, there were a lot of rules. No dancing, no outrageous behavior, very little basic personal freedom. You better show up for Sunday services. My goodness. But provided you obeyed the rules, there was what we might call today a social safety net. If you got sick and there was no one to take care of you, well, the society of Massachusetts would take care of you. If you're too poor, someone would feed you. That was their duty. Understood. And they perceived your suffering as an opportunity for them to act like Christians. And the thought, the term commonweal, God, I hope you can see this. Commonweal refers to an idea that informs the thinking of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. If you have a problem, it becomes my problem too, my burden too. And if I have a problem, it's your problem too. We share a common or we might call commonweal, common wellness today. Other places in the New World, in the 13th, did not see that way. For instance, the city of Philadelphia, which is called the city of brotherly love by its slogan, it was less brotherly in some ways. The good news, if you were not somebody who thought that, for instance, this necklace should get me thrown out of town because it's far too ostentatious, if you don't think that dancing is wrong, if you think that a person who is cursed shouldn't be horsewhipped, you probably would prefer living in Philadelphia. Philadelphia did not have any real rules. I mean, you were not allowed to murder. You were not allowed to rob a bank. And you really, really should try to avoid burning the city down. The city had occasional fires from rowdiness. But there were basically no other rules. You live your life, I live mine. I try to follow my standards, you try to follow yours. It was very libertarian, meaning I got mine, Jack. I'll do what I want to do. You do what you want to do. But there was no safety net. If you went broke in Philadelphia, you were broke. There was nobody who was necessarily going to help you at all unless you had a good friend or relative who wanted to. There was zippo, zilcho, zero help available. But you were very, very free compared to other places in Massachusetts where there were all these rules. It was the freedom of Philadelphia that it, to a large extent, engenders the kind of writing that Benjamin Franklin does. He becomes the owner of a printing press, which is kind of like becoming the owner of a social media platform. He had access to people's attention because if he wrote it and printed it and distributed it, people would see it. And he became a popular figure because he was really a funny guy. He was known for his hard living. He was not a Puritan in his sexual politics. He kind of thought YOLO. He didn't say YOLO, but he might as well have said YOLO. So when Benjamin Franklin reads the pious but frankly sanctimonious Puritan diaries, which were always looking for God's favor in the smallest of details, like the weather. If it's sunny, God is happy with me, and it's a sign that I'm going to heaven. And if we have bad blizzards, well, God's disfavor has fallen upon us, and we need to drop to our knees and ask him to stop punishing us. There were so many moments of God consciousness throughout Puritan diaries, including the one that I've included for your reading. But there's, you would think that the passage "judge not lest you be judged" didn't appear in red letters in the Bible the way that the Puritans act. They were totally down with judging people. And consequently, there are trials for big and small things. I mean, of course, murder is a big deal and we should prosecute murder in any society, but the smallest of religious disagreements or infractions against the religious code would be a source of severe punishment by the Puritan society. And Ben Franklin is not having it. And that's why we see this satire, this spoof of testimony of a completely unrepentant, I could either call her a slut or a sexually liberated woman. I'm inclined to call her a sexually liberated, who is faced with yet another prosecution of her behavior. And so in America, there are multiple ideas of what America was for. The Puritans were not averse to making a buck. They really weren't. They made a buck. But Philadelphia was all about the Benjamins, quite literally Benjamin Franklin being alive and well at the time. New York basically had one rule: make money. You're not a Christian, you're a Jew. Welcome. One of the early colonial governors was a cross-dresser. Interracial couples, shocking to those who visited, but really not a problem. And pirates just don't commit an act of piracy in the city itself, if you can avoid it. Dancing, drunkenness, welcome to New York. Hope you have a great time. Same with New Orleans. New Orleans was very welcoming to pirates and was always a place where there was a let's call it a high tolerance for sexually and unconventional behavior. That would be those visions of America, which were indeed different than other parts of North America and their standards.